Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Ledwell and this is The Inspiration Show. Today on the show I have my very good friend Arjuna Ardagh. How are you, Arjuna?
Hey, I'm good. Good to see you. Thank you.
Now we're going to be talking about an interesting subject and one that is close to my heart because I'm always on the lookout for one of these rare specimens, and we're going to be talking about conscious men. What the definition of a conscious man is, how we can identify them, and the journey that men are going through now. Because we've spoken quite a bit before on the show about this awakening that we're starting to see, and normally we talk about it in relation to women, but I'm finding more and more men now are starting to have this opening and this yearning for something different. And something bigger than themselves, which is really exciting. So before we get into that juicy conversation, Arjuna, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into doing this kind of work?
Well, the project with men actually was born out of my friendship with John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, the classic go-to book for gender. I just pulled that off my shelf.
Yeah.
John and I have been in the same men's group for about 8 years. And actually, it just happened that one day, I live quite far away. I live 2 hours away from where this men's group happens. So one day I was feeling tired, so I just wrote a quick email to everybody in the men's group saying, who has a bed for me to sleep tonight? And John wrote back, you can stay with us. So I stayed with John. And after the men's group, we went back to his house, we made a cup of tea, and we started to talk about our men's group, then about men's group more generally, then about what does it mean to be a man today. We looked up at the clock, it was 2:30 in the night, right? So we'd been talking for 4.5 hours. So a month later, we had the men's group again. I went down to Marin. This time I actually wrote to John, can I stay again? He said yes. The same thing happened. The third time that I went down, we actually deliberately recorded our conversation. And out of having many, many, many conversations like this, like hours and hours and hours of conversation, we created a book that I really think has an original view of what it means to be a man today.
Right. So what does it mean to be a man today?
Right. Okay. Well, I'll give you just I'll give you the kind of the elevator pitch here, I suppose. Okay. So if we go back, I don't know, just to the 1950s, men and women had very clearly defined roles relative to each other. So, woman's role was to stay at home with the kids and the food and the house and, all of that. And a man's role was somewhat rugged. He would go out and he would either go to war or he would go to the city, dressed in kind of almost like a uniform. And he wouldn't really feel very much. He would just do his duty and bring back the money. And if he did his duty sufficiently, it was kind of his right to have sex with his wife. He didn't show much feeling. This was the stereotype that many of us grew up with our fathers and grandfathers. Now, as we all know, in the 1960s, there was a big revolution happened among the genders. So women who had already gotten the vote in 1917, women started to want to participate more in being creative and expressing themselves. Women wanted to become judges and doctors and politicians and lawyers and all these things. Men, on the other hand, in the late 60s, grew their hair long, got more into their feelings, learned to play the guitar, started to smoke marijuana, very feminizing drug. There was a whole kind of hippie thing started. But generally, men realized we have feelings too, and we want to be able to follow our feelings. So a man was no longer happy to just do what his father did. A man realized that he had his own emotional body as well. So really, in the early 70s, women became more masculine. As we traditionally understood it, men became more feminine, and that was in many ways good. It was a liberation from a straitjacket of conformity we'd had up to that point. But here's the thing: is if that becomes another kind of conformity, what can happen is if women go too much into a kind of go for it, kick-ass, testosterone-based attitude, if a woman becomes like a lawyer and wears business suit or becomes the CEO and actually doesn't have an opportunity to express her feminine energy, the problem is that a woman becomes stressed. Because women, they balance stress hormones of adrenaline and cortisol with oxytocin, and the work environment that has been created by men is mostly conducive towards man's way of doing things. Now, in the same way, if a man goes too much into his feminine side, goes too much into talking about feelings, being guided by feelings, too much into, relational concerns or the family, he actually becomes feminized. And the problem is that he then becomes very stressed, because a man's way of dissolving stress is to push through with testosterone until something's accomplished, and then there's this feeling of, he's earned the right to rest, and that's a release of dopamine and serotonin in the brain. So when a man has accomplished something, naturally he's going to stop, he's going to relax, he's going to feel he's earned the right to rest. So actually what's happened is, in the last few decades, as we've had this freedom from stereotyping, men have become somewhat, not all men, but a lot of men have become somewhat lost and confused. They've lost a sense of direction. They don't really know what their gift is in the world anymore. And so what we find, John and I, is many of the men that we counsel, or who we counsel, they don't actually feel very good about themselves as men. It also affects sexual performance. A man who's become more feminized, who doesn't have an opportunity to balance these chemicals, has a greater difficulty in getting an erection or in sustaining erection during sex. So consequently, really, John has a great understanding of biology, and I have a really good understanding of coaching. So we've put together this book really just to provide tools to support a man to feel good about himself. Now, I've presented you with two possibilities, right? One is the stereotype, the macho man that goes back thousands of years, the man who's hard, enduring, rugged, doesn't feel his feelings. The opposite is the feminized man. That's the second kind of man who's kind of lost his edge. He's gone kind of limp, Mm-hmm. There's a third kind of man, which we can talk about, which is the cultivated, learned kind of masculinity. And that means you go read a book, here's how you should be a man, or you go to a course and this is how you should be a man. And that develops a kind of rather, stilted, like, okay, now I'm really present and I'm being a man now. But the problem with that is it's very serious, and if you just poke in the wrong place, it's all going to fall apart. So the fourth kind of masculinity that we're describing is conscious masculinity. And that simply means that as a man, you've put some energy, some interest into your masculinity. You've considered how to transform your masculinity from automation to art. You've considered how you can make your identity as a man into a gift that will allow you to feel good about yourself. It will be a gift to your partner and to your children and to the people you work with.
Right. So what I hear you saying is that a conscious man is someone who still is operating from the masculine, but is in touch with his emotions, and is making more conscious choices based on not just a man's role, but as in his what's better for his family, what's his highest good. Is there some kind of soul connection as well for a conscious man?
Yeah. So in our book Conscious Men, whoopsie, in our book Conscious Men, which I've got right here, we talk about 12 qualities of conscious masculinity. But this is not a formula. We're not telling men how to be. Right. Based on our research, we've determined that there are actually 12 qualities which, if they are recognized and somewhat cultivated, you see, those are the 12 qualities. If they are recognized and somewhat cultivated, we've determined these are the qualities which allow a man to feel good about himself. There's a tremendous element of choice in this, you see. I mean, we're not telling anybody how to be. We're saying these are 12 qualities which we've determined allow a man to feel comfortable in his own skin. Have a look at these 12 qualities. If some of them you're living fully already, then great. If some of them you don't want to live, no problem. But if there are qualities we show you here that you can see are weak in you and you'd like to make them stronger, here are the tools that will allow you to do that. It's a book of tools. It's got dozens and dozens and dozens of simple, short practices a man can do to bring the best of himself forward, particularly in relationship to a woman.
Right. Because that's the thing. I think that the roles, I think you're right. The roles have actually kind of got us screwed around a little bit. And I think in some ways, women, especially if they have to step into their masculine in their career or whatever, they forget to turn that off when they come home.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
they emasculate their men. And then we have the guys who are like, well, I know that I need to be more feeling and more open, but then how do I navigate as a man still and still do that and be able to do that as well? So can you maybe share a couple of the tools that you have in the book that that men could use?
Yeah, well, a good thing you mentioned is about feelings. So one of the tools that we offer in the book is actually a tool that John has been teaching for decades. It's called the Venus Talk. And it's not exactly what you would expect. The Venus Talk is a 10-minute practice that's done between a man and a woman. So this is oriented towards a heterosexual couple, where the woman will speak for maybe 10 minutes about whatever is going on for her. We particularly remind couples to remember feelings of frustration, of concern, of disappointment, of embarrassment. These are the common feelings. They're not dramatic feelings like rage. They're the kind of mild feelings that we tend to get caught up in during the day. And we also then invite a woman to move into what does she want? You know, what does she want to create, and what does she appreciate? What is she grateful for? Now, the man's role, quite surprisingly, is simply to listen and to ask questions. And then after 10 minutes, they don't switch, right? Everybody thinks now we should switch. Now it's the man's turn to talk about his feelings. No. The way that the point of this practice is not that everybody gets to talk about their feelings. The point of this practice is that a woman has an opportunity to fully share her feelings, and a man has the opportunity to sit back in the saddle, to rest into not just being an aware man, but to being awareness itself, which is something of a kind of mystical state, actually, to enter into a kind of open-eyed meditation. Because here's the thing. When a man rests back in himself and becomes listening, and I'm using that language intentionally, I'm not saying he listens, I'm saying he becomes pure listening or pure awareness. That is actually what causes blood flow to the front part of the brain, increase of dopamine and serotonin, which replenishes his testosterone reserve, which means after 10 minutes of pure listening, a man is going to be more present, feel more confident, feel more like, I've got this. On the other hand, if a woman is invited to just talk freely about her feelings, well, then this happened, then I said this, and then he said that, and I felt kind of disappointed. If a woman is able to just follow every feeling, she's going to move much more into her feminine essence, which will increase oxytocin in her brain. The oxytocin balances stress, and after that, a man and woman will actually feel polarized. They'll feel they have something to give to each other. He has to give this gift of centered, present, open, spacious awareness. She has to give to him the gift of colorful exploration of feeling. And then they polarize, they have something good to give to each other, and that becomes a foundation of a relationship where it's not two people just meeting in kind of homogeneous harmony. It's two people meeting in a polarity who have something to give to each other, and that's actually what creates attraction. It's what creates great sex, and it's what creates a long-term sustainable relationship. It's recognizing this difference in gender in biology and turning it into a gift so we can serve each other. See?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I know you and John have actually been working on an online course. So is this kind of the kind of information and the tools that you teach in the course?
Yes, yeah. The beautiful thing about the course is we interviewed a ton of really amazing men. Some of the most inspiring, on-target, purposeful men, like John Mackey, the founder of Whole Foods, talks about mission and purpose. Who could talk better about a huge mission than, you know, transforming the way that America thinks about food? We interview Coot Blackson. We interview Bill Kauf, who founded the Mankind Project. We found some of the really powerful elders of men's work. So when you go through the course, John and I will introduce you to these practices and this understanding. It's all on video. And then we put you into a circle where you can move from one man to another in a men's circle. Some of the greatest, most wisest men alive on the planet talking about these different areas. So you can go into a men's circle about mission and purpose. You can go into a men's circle about being with anger. You can go into a men's circle around sexuality and listen to wise men sharing their life experience. So it's a fabulous opportunity to learn from some of the greatest men alive about the possibilities inherent in your manhood.
Right. And so who are the type of men that would benefit from this, and what are the benefits that we get out of doing an amazing course like this?
Well, the benefit that John and I have derived from all of this and from our involvement in our own men's group is that you learn how easy it is to feel good about yourself as a man, to feel you're a good man with something to give. It's only a flip of a switch to relax and feel, I'm a good man, I'm a good husband, I'm a good father, I'm a good leader, I'm a good man. And that's a very specific feeling, you know. And when you have that feeling of, I'm a good guy, I'm giving my best, it dissolves fanaticism, it dissolves insecurity, it dissolves the need for rigid ideology. You know, a big thing that's worrying to people at the moment is the rise of political and ideological fanaticism, which often leads to violence and terrorism. But really, this happens in a vacuum of meaning. When you have a vacuum of knowing why you're alive, you turn to extremist ideologies to try and find meaning in something external. When a man feels that he knows his gift, he knows his place in the world, he feels confident about that, a man just naturally wakes up in the morning looking forward to his day. He goes to bed at night with a sigh of relief knowing he's given everything. His sex works well. Everything flows well. His money works well. And all of this is actually not nearly as difficult as one might imagine. It simply requires understanding your biology and cooperating with your biology.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm very excited. I'm very excited about the course that the two of you are running, and I'm excited about the graduates that you're going to be, putting out into the world. As a conscious woman, I'm really looking forward to it.
You deserve only the best.
Yes. So, where can we send people to find out more about this and to connect with you, Arjuna?
Consciousmen.com.
Okay.
Consciousmen.com. Very simple. Consciousmen.com. We've been talking about conscious men, so it's just consciousmen.com. There it is, right there at the bottom of the book. Consciousmen.com. You see that? I think I'm holding it. Very easy, and it's all there. There's a free mini course waiting to. John and I will be there on the front page waiting to greet you. 5-day free mini course takes you through all the permutations of this. At the end of the mini course, we'll explain to you the next step if you'd like to go deeper.
Wonderful. So thank you, Arjuna, for joining me today. As always, it's always a very educational conversation with you.
It's wonderful to be friends with you, Natalie. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, guys, if you click on the banner to the side, if you're watching this online, or the banner underneath, if you're watching this on the app, you can go straight through to Arjuna and John's website from there. And make sure that you share this video. You can do that by clicking the Facebook and the Twitter share buttons on this page. And make sure that you leave your email so we can send you the Manifesting with the Masters video e-course. So until next time, remember to live large, choose courageously, and love without limits. We'll see you soon.
Whoa, that sounds good.